and welcome to Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building the new nation. I am Madingor. In this forum, we explore the key concerns surrounding the National Dialogue Initiative from multiple perspectives. In the second half of our panel discussion, we will take brief questions and views from the distinguished audience. With us for the Fixing South Sudan National Dialogue Forum, Honorable Acuil Malith, Senior Member of the ruling Sudan People's Liberation Movement, Honorable Onyoti Adigo, Chairman, the Democratic Change Party, he is to my right, and Awolich, Senior Researcher, the Sudan Institute. Welcome the panelists, welcome to you all. In December, the President of the Republic of South Sudan, General Salva Kiir Mayardit, declared in a speech to the National Legislature the creation of the National Dialogue Initiative to achieve the following objectives. You listen carefully. Number one, to end all forms of violence in the country, to redefine and reestablish stronger national unity. Number three, to strengthen social contract between the citizens and the state. Number four, to address issues of diversity. Number five, to agree on a mechanism for allocating and sharing resources. Number six, to settle historical disputes and sources of conflict among communities. Number seven, to set a stage for an integrated and inclusive national development strategy and economic recovery. Number eight, to agree on steps and guarantees to ensure safe, free, fair, and peaceful elections and post-transition in 2018. Number nine, to agree on a modality for a speedier and safe return of IDPs and refugees to their homes. Number 10, the last one, to further national healing, peace, and reconciliation agenda. So, Honorable Acuil, as you can see, the ideas of the initiatives are varied. Recently, the President said in a speech in Yei that the process kicks off in March. There are so many challenges, a lot remains to be done. So what are your thoughts about the national dialogue and its goals?
And then I can say, yes, what you mentioned, the 10s are 10 goals. They are not objectives. It is the technical committee and the technocrats who are going to come up with the specific objectives. The President also has put, you did not read it, it has put 6 parameters within which you can dialogue, because it is also in regards to the conflict resolution, agreement on conflict resolution in South Sudan, and with the constitution and our culture, the way we do our things. So the rest of the things. So yes, the national dialogue is a necessity, and it is timely. The challenge is that part of it is going to be solved by incorporating in the research institute and the universities and the dignitaries. But mind you, the national dialogue has to start with yourself. And that's why the President himself started with himself, our chairman in the party, and we are very happy with this, because the study said that he has to study, he has to seek forgiveness, which is number 10. But also, it is very important that we have been challenged as a party, as a government led by the party, as the people, as individuals. We have been challenged a lot, because for us, we need a lot of civic education about these 10 things, how they work.
Let me take you to where the process is so far.
Yes.
So we know it has been announced, it is going to start. The President has appointed committees and some institutions, such as the Sudan Institute. So the process is on the way. But as the ruling party, you said it begins with the individual. But at the party level, because you are the ruling party, and at the government level, what is being done to make sure we have timely national dialogue?
I cannot give you everything now, but we are taking the secretariat is taking this seriously, and the party is not the secretariat. The party is many elements secretariat, the caucus, the youth, the women, and the popular and syndicated organization, and civic movement that are like-minded. So we are all engaged, and we want to comprehend. After the technical committee has set up the strategies and the objectives, then they have to engage with us. But for time being, we are waiting for these programs, but not waiting to do it. There are programs within the party that are waiting until they become complementary with the decision of the technical committee, and then we go ahead.
And just another chance before we go to our other guest. It is your chairman who declared this process. So my question to you is, do you think that it is ambitious?
No, it is not ambitious. It is challenging because we need to transform human beings. We need to transform the citizen of South Sudan. The world, the behavior is not easy. So transformation is very important, and we are focusing on that. That psychic, that civic, that responsibility. We are not going to dictate the solutions. The solution has to come from individuals and organizations. So yes, it is timely and it is needed now, because early on we were focusing on physical liberation. But we will be asking me of some, say, contract between me and the nation. The nation must give me salary, must give me health insurance. But I have to pay for health insurance. I have to pay for my pension. I have to pay for access to service. I have to emancipate myself from all the vulnerabilities. So this is, and I agree that the nation state and the other people and the other nationalities are going to collaborate with me. So that is by itself is a social contract.
So let me bring in the leader of the opposition. You have been following the process of the national dialogue quite closely. You probably have some views on it. How do you feel about it? What do you think about it?
Thank you very much, Madengor. In fact, the national dialogue, right from the very beginning, was our call in 2011. We needed the country to go into national dialogue, to establish the basic fundamental of good governance, because we think that at the present moment, there are a lot of things connected with the governance. Starting from the very beginning, when we took over the independent, there was a wrong starting. So it was good now that the president has declared this national dialogue, which we all accepted that it is a good way forward. But when we talk about national dialogue, it's not an individual dialogue. It is not two or three. It is all people, and should be inclusive, everybody, because we are trying to address the issues of the country so that we are able to move forward. And all the suffering of people has been maintained here by the president. There are a lot of very good, beautiful points which he has got as specific objectives, which was read to you before. They are very beautiful. It needs us to really think deep and try to have two things. One, do have political commitment when it is declared like this. Do have political will so that we are able to bring ourselves together and try to dialogue. I think these are very important questions which we need to see, because the important thing which we need to identify, who need to dialogue with whom, who is supposed to dialogue, who is to dialogue with whom, and on what basis are they going to dialogue, and where will they dialogue. These are all questions.
Yeah, let's answer them here.
Questions which we need to put forward.
Let's answer them here. You talk about making sure the process is inclusive. So how do you feel so far? Do you feel that it is going to be inclusive?
Yeah, at the present moment, I'm feeling that it is not inclusive, in the sense that when you look at the steering committee, if you need to involve yourself in national dialogue, it should include people who are going to dialogue. But if that steering committee is meant to be a sort of people to analyze when the government or anybody who has brought this idea to sell out the idea to people and then bring them to people, analyze them and accept a certain agenda, I think will be good. But if it is steering committee to run the dialogue itself, then I will say it is not inclusive, because there are a lot of people who are not included. And if we need a national dialogue should compose of everybody. Inclusivity is very important.
And what do you make of the fact that the president himself is the patron for the national dialogue? Do you take issue with that, or do you say this is goodwill on his part? It means that he's committed, because that is what he says.
Yeah, his commitment by making it to be a patronage, there are two connotations. One, it is good in the sense that he's the president of the country and he may be committing himself. But another issue is one of the people to dialogue, either directly or indirectly, because his party is involved in this mess up which has happened. So it is the dialogue of all the people, including the president, directly or indirectly. In which case, is being a patron. You know, I will just give you a very simple example. When you had South-South dialogue, 2010, where everybody was called on board, I think there was no patron. Everybody was involved. Other political parties, civil societies, and people managed the agenda and managed to come together and made resolutions. These resolutions, unfortunately, were not respected. I'm afraid also, if we are not careful, when this national dialogue goes through, then there will be no implementation. The resolution will be a problem also.
There's a lot to talk about.
That's why we say there need to be a political will and commitment.
There is a lot to talk about, and we are just starting. So when you talk about those who have been appointed, the steering committee, the advisory, and also at the secretariat level, we have institutions like the Sud Institute. So they can tell us how is the process going so far, because they are supposed to be part and parcel of the whole initiative. So what can you say about the national dialogue as it is, and do you yourself feel that it is going to be inclusive to address some of the concerns here?
Well, thank you very much, and I want to thank the audience that are here. I think national dialogue is a very important subject at the moment, because we have to look at where we are coming from. Before the president declared the national dialogue, there was a clear sense of fear spreading across the country, insecurity widespread. There was also a growing incidence of hate speeches across the country, and in the social media in particular. There was also growing pressure for international intervention in South Sudan and call for sanctions. So this was the state of South Sudan at the time. And so how do you move forward? And this came on the backdrop of a peace agreement that did not go the way it was envisioned. And so the country was left with no choice but to look back, to step back, and try to have a discussion as to how you move forward the country. So when the president declared the national dialogue, I think it was well received. Now on our part, as a secretariat and the steering committee, what is clear is that the steering committee and secretariat cannot be the one to run the national dialogue. They are there to steer the process, as the name suggests, which means they are the one to set the timelines and the goals and also gather opinions from the stakeholders as to what are they going to talk about, when and where, as the opposition leader was raising. But the people that are going to talk are the people of South Sudan, be they warring parties, be they political parties, communities, and so forth. So in a steering committee, it is like a game. When you are playing a football game, referees don't represent the playing teams. If they represent the playing teams, then the game will be messed up. Referees must be people that are neutral, people that are not supporting one of the teams. And that is why we thought that the the selection of the research centers and also people of eminent status that may appeal to different groups of South Sudanese was appropriate. Now, on our part, what are we doing? What we have been doing is to try to conceptualize what what are people of South Sudan thinking about when they heard national dialogue. And so we are developing what we call a log frame to try to measure in fact, we are calling these objectives of the president, we are calling them outputs. These are the things that we will actually do.
The concern here is that you are going to rubber stamp whatever is being done by a steering committee, which he thinks is not fair enough. Your sense so far is that that is not the case, that this is going to be a genuine process.
Absolutely. So, first of all, there is going to be consultation at the grassroots. The people who own the grievances at the grassroots are people at the grassroots. So nobody here will go with a bag in Juba of grievances and distribute it to people at the grassroots. So the grievances are there. So the goal of the objective of the role of the steering committee is to go and identify and understand what are those grievances and bring those people with grievances together in an environment that they can trust so that they can talk about their issues. So there is nothing to be stamped. So the only people with a stamp are the people that are going to discuss. And our job is just to document and read it out and say, this is what you have discussed, this is what you have agreed.
You have outlined what necessitated the dialogue. And what is interesting, and I would like to get your view on that, is the fact that we have a transitional government of national unity, which was agreed upon in Ethiopia to do precisely some of the things that the national dialogue is espousing. So would you say that that is enough political will already? Because the objectives are quite sweeping, talking about negotiating social contract, income, how it will be distributed. Would you say that is a massive political will on the part of the government and the president?
I think so, because what the government and the president has realized is that the agreement might have agreed on a number of fundamental issues, but it was negotiated by a very small group of South Sudanese. And the agreement also, after the July incident, is facing some challenges. And so the president seemed to think that maybe the best way to do this is to go back to our people, to tell us how best we can reorganize the state so to accommodate their grievances and also to rebuild consensus. Because at the moment, the country is divided, so you need to reestablish consensus broadly on a number of issues. So I think that is what the president seemed to suggest. And if that is the case, then there is a will. And like he said in the concept note, that it will complement the agreement. It will only make the agreement stronger and acceptable to a broad section of South Sudanese.
And Acuil Malith, the SPLM is the ruling party, and there are presently a lot of challenges, economic challenges, mass displacement, and there are some voices, the UN, they're saying the process will not go ahead because of the violence, because of the massive displacement. So the country is suffering under your watch as the ruling party. So coming back to the process, just give us, how do we get out of this one? Once the process gets started and we start talking, how does it solve our problems?
Okay, thank you for giving me another chance. I want to, it is good also to listen to the opposition and listen to the experts. But clearly, as it is always in our culture, the first word is more important. I want to say the opposition not to be an obstruction. It is true they have mentioned some things, but they should not focus on governance. The 10 goals are about South Sudan. They are not about the government, SPLM-led government, or any other political party-led government. By saying that actually they were pushing for national dialogue, is not 100% true, because it's part of our culture, the SPLM. And for them, for the opposition to come, it was a dialogue. It was a dialogue between us, South dialogue he mentioned. But from day one, SPLM in the moment was doing dialogue. Without dialogue, we could not have reached this stage. Even with government of Khartoum, we did dialogue. Okay. Now coming to what we are supposed to be doing, we are looking for way forward. We want contribution of the way forward. And the president of the country is the president of everybody. Democracy, he won 93%. So everybody should accept that it is His Excellency's responsibility to guide and direct everything so that it become a legacy for him. He's not there, he's not a patron because he's the chairman of SPLM, but because he's the one upon which we have 93% agreeing him to be. Therefore, he is a patron. It is his responsibility to make sure that this thing is happening. He cannot hand it to anybody. And then the steering committee is not the one doing dialogue. The steering committee is preparing for dialogue. So those who think they are supposed to be involved in dialogue should come up with a statement, not the way the steering committee is put up. The way the steering committee is put up, you can write to the steering committee, you can meet the steering committee because this is your national issue. You don't need to be appointed. I have learned also there are some circles, like the church, like the mosque, the faith. They own this country in their own way. They don't need to be appointed, but it is their responsibility to go there, pray, and advise. They're coming to that. Now coming to these challenges of the challenges we are facing. Yes. Do we fear because there are challenges that we don't do national dialogue? Yes, the national dialogue will be affected negatively by the challenges we are facing. But we thought, as Awolich put it correctly, we have to give up this violent communication and we focus on the future. Come with your dream, because it is your dream. Okay, we have been in dialogue, even war. J1 fighting was a dialogue.
The State House.
State House. It's J1, I know the State House. Was a dialogue. So if you want to continue writing, I write and I shoot you, we can continue to shoot. Those who are ready to continue to shoot, please can we sit and explore a peaceful forum to dialogue about our future that for the country that we love.
So national dialogue is not just prerogative of the government, but is also of the parties involved, including your party. And so at your level, what are you doing to prepare for the dialogue? Honorable Onyoti.
Thank you very much. I think this is a good question. We are not saying that the steering committee is the one to dialogue. And as I said before, if it was me, the steering committee, as been mentioned by the expert Awolich, is supposed to be the one to analyze all and then sell out to different group of people and then wait for their reply. Then again, they analyze it and then send it back until we reach by consensus of what is going to happen. This is how I thought about it. So now, when we say that we are talking about national dialogue, like we, as I told you before, that the national dialogue was originated from us earlier, and I was even calling it from time to time. We are more prepared about national dialogue, how the way we can make the way forward about this national. But here, there are challenges, as mentioned before, a lot of challenges which need to be addressed. And also, how do we attract people to come in order to accept this national dialogue? I think there should be some good gesture from the government as a whole. How do we make it in order to attract people who are not really together? Because like us now, here, I think the dialogue, we are dialoguing with the Acuil, with the Abraham Awolich, because we have no problem. But what about those who are carrying weapons? Those who are now fighting? How do you attract them to come and join this dialogue? Because this term as national dialogue. I think this needs to be a lot of work, and you need to give good gesture of what you are doing in order to attract this national dialogue for everybody to come in, so that you hear from anybody. Because if you look at the 10 points here, there are some points which are mostly for on the national level, political parties, civil society, and so forth. But there are some which are basically for what? For the grassroots level. Not every problem is you go to the grassroots. No. There are things which are connected with grassroots. And as a country which is still backward, I doubt that you can convince the grassroots without convincing the leadership up. You know, you need to come together. We need to come together with Acuil Malith, with Abraham Awolich, so that we agree. When we agree, it would be easy for us to go to the grassroots and talk to people, and these people may accept. So
I have to come back to my question about what you are doing as a political party. I would be remiss not to point out the fact that in your party there are those who think you are not legitimate. You are not the chairman. So when we are talking about national dialogue and you are not harmonious, then you don't have the legitimacy to criticize the government. What do you make of that?
This is a different thing now. I don't know who told you. I don't know who told you that I'm not legitimate. Because now you are bringing some rumors. Rumors, you know, this is not the place for rumors.
I am.
It should be the reality now.
There is a press release by the former, according to you, the former Secretary General of the party. I don't want to drag the whole thing.
Excuse me, please. Excuse me. When you say the former, man, he is no longer there.
That is from your point of view.
Yes.
That is from your point of view.
You say the former.
No, here is my point.
Are you arguing now because of my party or what?
Here is my point.
Huh?
We are talking about the national dialogue.
Then what brought the party?
Excuse me. We are talking about the national dialogue.
Yes.
There are challenges on the part of the government as well as part of the opposition. And your former Secretary General, according to you, because I have to call you the chairman because that's what you want to be called. But the reality is that I don't want to be sued because there is a power struggle within your party.
That is not true.
So my point is this. If it is not true, then would you say that you are harmonious enough to be able to make sure we have a successful national dialogue?
That is what I'm telling you. And then even we have made clear support to the president about the national dialogue. And even we have got ideas to contribute in connecting with this national dialogue. And some of them, these are some hints which I am now telling you. Because this is how we look at it. As I told you before, if we have started it, then we are not sitting idle because it is our interest that they see the need for the national dialogue in the Republic of South Sudan. Because if you look at the situation of the present moment, it's not good. And that is why we say, what are the objectives? And the objectives raised by the president are very good, as I told you before, they are beautiful ones. But it needs commitment by all of us so that we are able to talk about them. And as I told you, I need inclusivity because there is no problem with me, with the president, with anybody here in the country. I can dialogue with him freely. I met with the first vice president. I met with the vice president. I'm now long to meet with the president. These are to show assurance. But what about somebody out? How can we reconcile with them?
And we are going to hear from our audience. And before that, Abraham Awolich, you're from the civil society. And you can see there are a lot of suspicions out there in the social media, in the World Wide Web. People are writing a lot, saying that is it going to be a process where some people are excluded or not? So there are a lot of suspicions, but this probably is natural because this is quite an interesting exercise.
Well, thank you very much. I think before we go forward, we must establish a number of principles. One of them is the definition of inclusivity. There is a tendency for us to say that we must chase around these individual citizens of South Sudan who think that South Sudan is about them. Personally, I think that national dialogue is about the people of South Sudan. It should no longer be about President Kiir, Riek Machar, Lama Akol, and others. Because the last 3.5 years have been about them. And the problem is that they cannot maintain an agreement.
And their supporters will say that there will be no stability without those personalities.
Yeah, so let's start with the grassroots, and then we can bring them. Now we can bring them back. So, for example, could you argue that in 2016 August there was a peace agreement between President Kiir, Riek Machar, Lama Acuil, Pagana Mum? Where is it now? So it is like chasing a shadow if we continue to chase these individuals and make them happy while we leave South Sudanese yearning for basic needs. So I'm saying let us not use this forum again as a way of trying to chase around these individuals. Let's go to the South Sudanese, let's come up, and at the national level, when we arrive, after we have addressed the grievances at the grassroots, we can now talk about the leadership. And if we reverse it, we have been doing that since 2005. It has been about these guys sharing their power, sharing their money, sharing all of these things. The South Sudanese have not been sharing these things. Let us start there and work our way up and see whether we can get a different result. We cannot do this thing over and over again. So inclusivity, in my opinion, is that all people of South Sudan, whether they are represented by ethnic groups, whether they are represented by armed groups, whether they are represented by gender, let us use them as the basic unit of inclusivity, and not about leadership.
Okay.
That is my view.
The view is great. Let's be inclusive. Let's involve the people. So now it's time to hear from you, our distinguished audience.
Thank you, Madingor. My name is Acuil. I'm Deputy Vice Chancellor of Start International University College here in Malakia. First of all, I would like to advise the panelists that if you have not read the concept paper or concept